Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the complexities of film criticism and all the nuanced variables that go into it. At least from my perspective anyways. So, as someone with a passion for film, and especially film criticism and breakdowns, I thought I would take a look at the different variables and nuances that go into it, and why the enjoyment of film is so subjective despite there being clear objectivity in the technical aspects of filmmaking. Now, keep in mind, I'm not claiming any of this as fact whatsoever. This is just my assessment based on my own opinions and observations. But now that that's out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this. So the first and probably most important thing for me personally is nostalgia or lack thereof. What history or experiences are attached to this movie for me as an individual? Is there any emotional or sentimental attachment? This is a big thing for me because I would say most people have a certain memory attached to just about every movie they've watched. It may not even be a significant memory, but there's probably a memory attached to it nonetheless. But then with other movies, maybe you were introduced to it by a certain person or at a certain point in your life that was significant to you, so it completely alters how you view that movie. There's times I can watch a movie as an adult and I can see that it's objectively obviously a bad movie. It's not coherent, the acting is horrible, the effects are bad, the script is lacking, but because of that emotional attachment or experience with the movie I was speaking of, I might adore this movie. The movie can be total garbage in quite literally every sense of the word, but it'll still get a high score out of me for this alone. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the entertainment value it offers me or my personal experience with the film at the time of watching it, which kind of goes along with the first thing I said about nostalgia and the sentimental attachment. But in this case, it could be like the very first time you watch this movie with no previous history or memory attached to it. How much fun I have with the movie is a major factor when I grade a movie. And going along with entertainment value, there's times even in my videos you'll hear me criticize or nitpick something in a movie that I disliked, and then hear me praise another movie that's guilty of the exact same thing. And it's not that I'm contradicting myself or that I maybe didn't catch it in that movie. No, I probably caught it. Generally, it's just simply that I feel like the things this particular movie got right were strong enough to carry the weaker areas. And so the weaker areas of the movie just didn't stand out as badly, offend me as much, or didn't take me out of the movie as much. Whereas this other movie was lacking entertainment value or didn't have enough strength to override its weaknesses, so the flaws were just much more glaring for me. An easy example that comes to my mind is Halloween. The movie has some very dated and poor acting in spots, everybody knows that. But because the movie as a whole was so much more than the sum of its parts, and the writing was so spot on, and the scenes were filmed so perfectly, and because you can tell that John Carpenter truly understands how to create tension and atmosphere in a movie, which are things I personally look for in horror movies, more than anything probably. The occasional bad acting or dating aspects don't bother me as badly. In fact, in the case of Halloween, they don't bother me at all. That's my favorite horror movie of all time, and as I've said many times, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. But then I can watch a movie like Terrifier or Terrifier 2, and even though I can see what they were trying to accomplish, the characters were unlikable, the acting was even worse, it was completely void of any sort of coherent plot, and you combine all that with the fact that I just don't like it when movies use gratuitous gore for the sake of shock value. It basically results in me feeling like there weren't nearly enough strengths in the movie to outshine the negatives. So it was an overall bad experience for me, and I became much more critical of literally everything. And ultimately just started nitpicking every little thing that I could normally overlook if I was having a better time watching it. And last but not least is rewatch value. And honestly, rewatchability and entertainment value can both be tricky because it really is a double-edged sword. Some movies can have no rewatch value because they're terrible, and then other movies can be terrible and have plenty of rewatch value because they have plenty of entertainment value. I know, it's wonky. An example of a terrible movie with no rewatch value is Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Just a bad movie. It didn't commit to being a serious horror movie with a solid script or solid acting or likable characters or even characters with clear-cut motivations. Just a horrible movie. But it also didn't commit to being a B-level campy fun movie. So what we ultimately got was a genuinely terrible movie with no rewatch value. But on the flip side of that coin, we have a movie like, say, Sleepaway Camp, which is so wonky and bonkers and literally had no reason to even exist. Yet it knows what it is and fully commits to it right down to, yeah, that last scene. And it is just a blast from start to finish and has endless rewatch value despite how technically bad it is on paper. Like I said, this movie had no reason to work so well, but it did. It was just lightning in a bottle. But then some movies can have plenty of rewatch value because they're great. And then some movies can be great movies with no rewatch value. A movie that's great and has endless rewatch value is Terminator 2. It's balls to the wall action. It takes all the best parts of all those campy 80s action movies full of cheesy one-liners and combines that with an epic plot, amazing characters, and a script so good that we honestly didn't even deserve it. The movie is explosive, fun, and emotional, and I can seriously watch that movie over and over and never get bored with it. And then there's other great movies that have no rewatch value. Titanic is a good example of this. If you'll notice, you'll see a theme here with James Cameron. He gives us all different flavors of film. I feel like it was a great experience, especially seeing it in theater. It felt larger than life. The build-up to the inevitable third act was all worth it because of just how powerful the entire third act was, especially in 1997. Those special effects were groundbreaking, and those of us who were alive back then and saw that movie in theater know just how groundbreaking it really was. It's one of those you would have had to have been there to seen it kind of things. But even all the characters were just so likable despite being a very predictable and cookie-cutter love story. Every character was written very well and fleshed out enough that as a viewer, you could attach yourself to each one of them. And you're along for the ride. The motivations for each character were clear, and you were entertained enough throughout the first two acts that, like I said, you weren't bored while you were waiting for that ship to sink. But as great of an experience as that movie was, it's not really a ride you want to get on more than once, at least not me anyways. It was a fun experience, and I don't hate myself anytime I've rewatched it since, but that's just it. I basically never want to rewatch this movie. It has no rewatch value for me personally, and anytime I have watched it, it was just through happenstance. After I watched the ship sink that first time, I was wholly satisfied, and I mean that in the best way possible, but it was a one-time experience for me. And honestly, everything I just said is why I never get mad when somebody else's opinion of a certain movie or a franchise is different than mine. I don't let it offend or irritate me. In fact, that's why I'm really happy that technological advancement has given us an avenue as movie lovers and fans to come together and just discuss movies. I absolutely love hearing other people's opinions on movies and franchises and seeing how they rank certain movies in that franchise or what kind of a score they give that movie when they review it. There's just so much nuance and so many variables that go into each person's individual love for a film. And I think it's awesome to see how that experience has altered how they view certain movies. In fact, to be completely honest with you, I kind of enjoy it when other people disagree with me because then it sparks discussion and I can talk to them and see what it is about that movie that they love so much or that they dislike so much. And maybe they can show me a new perspective that I've never seen before. And hey, maybe it won't change my mind about the movie, but it might. Maybe even in a positive way. It's happened. I've had movies that I really didn't like all that much, but after discussing it with someone or watching someone's review on that movie, it opened my eyes to an aspect of that film that I had never seen before, and it actually had a positive effect on that movie. And I love it when that happens. I think anybody does, because as movie fans, we always want to add to our collection of movies we love. But I've never really had that happen with a movie that I just absolutely despise. I mean, if I truly just hate a movie, I'm pretty cemented in that, and there's probably not a lot that can be done to change my mind on that. But a movie has to be pretty bad for me to get to that point anyway. So that's kind of the exception, not the rule. But anyways, that's it for this one, guys. Do you guys have any thoughts or input on any of this? If so, let me know down in the comments section, or find me on one of my socials, which is linked in the video description, and we can discuss it. In the meantime, go ahead and like and share this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.